A group of people are standing around looking at two kids who have just shown up in their village. These kids are small for their age, look malnourished, and most notably have bright green skin. And to make matters even weirder, they don't speak the local language and seem to be from another world entirely. It was market day in the village of Okavan, when Alara noticed a commotion near the center of town. She was hanging out by her family's spice stall, helping out where she could. Her father, Balin, had traveled to the neighboring city of Aldersgate to buy new stock, so for now, it was just her mother and younger brother, Finn, helping run the stand. As Alara got closer, she saw a crowd gathered around two outsiders. The first was a weathered old woman who looked to be no more than 70 years old, though there were lines etched into her face that suggested otherwise. But what drew everyone's attention was the two children who stood beside her. They appeared to be about 8 or 9 years old, but both were unnaturally thin. And the most shocking thing about them was the fact that they were green. Not just a little green, mind you, but the color of the emerald, bright and vibrant. Alara pushed through the crowd to get a better look and heard one of the townspeople ask, "Where did you come from?" One of the children responded, but since neither had ever heard that language before, nobody could understand what he said. The girl, however, shook her head and remained silent. The old woman noticed Alara watching and beckoned for her to come closer. As she approached, the old woman introduced herself as Greta and explained that these two children had stumbled into her hut in the forest earlier that morning. At first, she assumed they were some sort of stowaways who had snuck out of Aldersgate during the night. However, when she asked them where their parents were, the children had become frightened and began crying. That's when Greta noticed their strange skin color. Thinking that they might have been the victims of foul play, she brought them back to town to find someone who could help. And so here they were, standing in front of the midday crowd with no answers as to how they ended up in Okavan. Alara couldn't help but feel sorry for them. She remembered a time when she and Finn would sneak into town to beg for food. Now people like Greta were the only reason that they didn't starve. "I think we should take care of them," Alara told her mother, who was listening intently. "They haven't eaten in days. Have you children? Go get my stew pot. We'll bring them back home." Alara nodded and hurried away, grabbing the biggest pot she could find. She filled it with beef and vegetable stew, then returned to the crowd with the food. "Here you go," she said to the children. They looked at each other before taking the proffered food and digging in. As they ate, Alara kept an eye on them. While the boy ate quickly and voraciously, the girl seemed timid and reserved. "How about you to come stay at our house for a while?" Alara asked. "We can take care of you until we figure out what to do next." Both children looked at their companion, who finally nodded her head. "All right," she said, "let's go." After bringing the children back to her house, Alara set them up on 2 chairs by the hearth, then went to go fetch her mother. "I want you to meet the newest members of our family," Alara said. "At least for now." Her mother smiled and nodded. "Welcome to our home," she said. Over the course of the next few hours, Alara's mother tended to the children's wounds and gave them new clothes. Meanwhile, Alara tried talking to them, but all she got for her efforts was a confused look. It was frustrating because Alara wanted to help them, but she didn't know their language and they didn't know hers. Finally, when the sun began setting, Alara's mother sat them down and told them, "Tomorrow we'll figure out what to do about your situation. For now, why don't you just sleep here by the hearth? It'll be warm and safe." In the morning, after preparing breakfast, Alara went to wake up the children. To her surprise, they were gone. However, on one of the chairs, she found a small pouch made of leather. Inside, she found 3 smooth stones that hummed faintly with magic. Then just as suddenly as they vanished, the children reappeared, except this time they were fully dressed and carrying their own backpacks. "Where did you two go?" Alara asked. "Did you leave the village?" "We're sorry," the boy said, "but we don't know this place and we don't want to cause any trouble." "Trouble?" Alara asked. "What do you mean?" The girl looked down at her feet. "We're not from around here," she whispered. "We came from somewhere else." "Somewhere else?" Alara echoed. "But how?" The girl shrugged. "We don't know. The stones just glowed. So we picked them up, and the next thing we knew, we were here." "The stones?" Alara realized. "You mean these?" The girl looked up, surprised that Alara understood what she was saying. Over the next few minutes, the children explained that they weren't from Okavan or Aldersgate, but from another world entirely. The stones were their only way of communicating across worlds. But apparently, their powers were unpredictable, and sometimes the connection between worlds was strong enough to pull them along with it. "So if you want to get home," Alara asked, "you need to find a way to make the stones glow." "Exactly," the boy said. "But how?" Alara thought for a moment. Maybe she could cast a spell. After all, magic was fairly common in her world. Most people could perform simple spells, though she wasn't sure if anything could bridge the gap between worlds. As if reading her mind, the girl said, "No spells. Our world's magic is different from yours. If you cast a spell here, it could kill us." Just then, Alara's mother walked in and asked, "Have you figured out how to get these two home yet?" Hearing his daughter's conversation, she snapped her fingers. "Why don't you two come with me?" I know just the person who can help." An hour later, Elara and her family were standing in a large hall inside the Mage's Tower in Aldereskate. Before them stood a tall, slender woman with flowing white hair. Her eyes, however, were what drew Elara's attention, for they seemed to hold the secrets of the universe itself. "This is Archmage Lyra," her mother said. "She's the best chance we have of sending these two children home." "Thank you," the Archmage said with a slight smile. "I was hoping that whoever brought these two to me would have figured out the basics of their situation already. That way I wouldn't have to waste time explaining things." The Archmage turned to the children. "You two are interdimensional travelers who somehow managed to stumble into our world. Is that correct?" Both children nodded slowly, still wary of the powerful mage before them. "Very well," Archmage Lyra said. "Tell me, when you arrived in the forest, were you alone?" "Yes," the girl replied. "No one else was with us." "Alone," the Archmage repeated, tapping her staff against the floor. "Interesting. Then let me ask you this. How did you manage to find your way to the village?" The boy looked down at his feet. "We followed a road." "You followed a road," Archmage Lyra said, as if the answer was obvious. "Of course you did. A road. Why didn't I think of that before?" With that, she strode to the door and called over her shoulder, "Come with me." When they arrived outside, the Archmage gestured to the road leading out of town. "That road," she said, "it leads directly to the nexus between your world and ours. There's a small clearing where the connection is strongest. You should have felt it when you entered the village. In fact, that's probably how you two ended up here in the first place. A stray bit of magic from the nexus pulled you through. Are you saying we can go home by going back there?" The Archmage nodded. "If you can find it, then yes." "Well, what are we waiting for?" the boy asked. "Let's go home." With the Archmage's directions ringing in their ears, Elara and the two children left the town and began walking down the road. All of them knew that this was only the beginning of their adventure. But what awaited them at the end of the road, no one was sure, not even Archmage Lyra. After all, magic was unpredictable by its very nature, and this was going to be one wild ride.